Welcome to part 14 of Let's Play Pokémon FireRed. We are still in the Silphco building, but we're almost done here. If you want to know the fastest way to get through Silphco, you start by going to the 5th floor and get the card key like I did last part. Then you do what I'm doing right now, is going to the 3rd floor and hit the teleporter that is located right about here. And that's pretty much all you need to go. And of course, Dipshit is here to challenge us, because it's not like there's any sort of crime organization around here or anything. Starting to see why I called him Dipshit. Well, I make fun of him, but this boss fight gave me a surprising amount of trouble. Part of it might be that perhaps I was a bit under-leveled. You're gonna notice that his Pokemon are quite a few levels above mine. You might also be wondering why I gave my Wartortle just random sunglasses for no reason. That's because the Pokemon that gave me the most trouble here was his Alakazam, and the only Pokemon with a dark type move I have right now is Wartortle, though I think maybe Growlithe also has Bite. Well, either way, those black sunglasses make it that the Pokemon that is holding it, its dark type's attack will be slightly boosted in power. In the end, I don't think it ended up doing a whole lot, but yeah, this battle took me a few tries. You can already see some of it right here, is that all my Pokemon are level 31 and 32, and his first Pokemon is level 37, which is a Pidgeot, which is the final evolution of Pidgey, and Pidgeotto, still a normal flying type. It's okay. It is also kicking my ass. Luckily, Doug here is pretty fast, and his Pidgeot is paralyzed, making it a bit slower, though it still has quick attack. And why is Doug missing multiple times in a row? I do not approve of this, Doug. I may have to replace you very soon. Luckily, his Pidgeot isn't attacking me either, though it did lower my attack stat, so that could mean trouble. And I scored a critical hit. Man, this battle is just all about luck, both good and bad. Also, here's another proof that I may be a bit under-leveled. His starter has evolved already. This is Venusaur, the final evolution of Bulbasaur and Ivysaur, and it is about to fuck me up. I thought maybe, seeing how he is neutral to ground type attack, I could do some damage with magnitude, but with my attack lower than a magnitude of only 6, yeah, that didn't do a whole lot. Like I said before, the two biggest threats in this battle are his Alakazam and his Venusaur. Let's see what a good old Fire Punch or Ice Punch may do to him after I get poisoned. Man, this thing is faster than me? Well, it is like 10 levels higher, but still, it's a pretty slow Pokemon. On the other hand, it is a fully evolved starter Pokemon, so those usually have pretty good or average stats. Well, Ice Punch didn't do jack shit. Maybe I can burn it with Fire Punch, I don't know. I'm just taking my chances, and I'm probably just gonna win by either using a bunch of revives or by good luck. Fire Punch didn't do much either. I do know for a fact that Venusaur has some pretty good defenses. I think if this was a Generation 4 fight, it would be easier, because Venusaur has a higher special defense than he does physical defense. And in this game, both Fire Punch and Ice Punch are still special moves, while in Gen 4 they become physical moves. But I did manage to burn him, so it's something. And now I die. That's my first Pokemon that has fainted so far, while I only managed to take out one of his. Then again, he does have 5 Pokemon as opposed to my 6, but he's still kicking my ass. Also, Growlithe's Intimidate and the Burn status are lowering his physical attack, while Venusaur pretty much uses nothing but special moves. Oh, and the continuous Sleep Powder and Poison Powder that never seem to miss for some reason. Okay, they do miss when I use them. I really should have fought some wild Pokemon before this. Get my Pokemon a bit higher level, just a bit. Hey, look at that. A not very effective attack. Still took out half my health. But at least one of the two biggest threats is down now. Took me like 4 Pokemon. And next he's gotta send out Gyarados, which is pretty easy as soon as I revive my electric type Pokemon. It's always disappointing when you have this really cool Pokemon and then he always has a 4 times weakness to something. In Gyarados' case, it's water flying, so one electric type attack should do the trick. I actually do end up using my max revive, an item I don't use a whole lot of because you don't really get a whole lot of them. They're pretty rare, making it so that I never want to use them. Also, I usually prefer to be able to beat anything without having to revive or max revive my Pokemon. Usually, not always the case. I use it here because I didn't want to have to grind and I kinda needed to, but usually at the very end of the game I still have all of my max revives. Oh yeah, I had a fun fact about Gyarados. Its original Japanese name was Skullkraken, which is a pretty rad name, but they didn't use it because they were limited to a certain amount of characters. Skullkraken wouldn't fit, so now he's named Gyarados. I wish he was named Skullkraken. So now dipshit Skullkraken is that. You know what, I'm just gonna keep calling him Skullkraken. But as I was saying, 2 electric attacks make quick work of him. Now I'm also gonna make quick work of his Growlithe. And then the terror approaches. His Growlithe is surprisingly low leveled. At least compared to the rest of his team, mostly the fact that his first Pokemon was a lot stronger. Then again, maybe I'm just the only one who puts his weakest Pokemon at the front of my party. I mean, that's just simply the one that needs leveling up. And the Growlithe is not down. It's almost down, and now it's gonna take himself down with takedown and get recoil damage, and he kinda did that to himself. And it wasn't all too difficult, but now he's about to send out his Alakazam. First I'm gonna switch to my mascot, paralyze him, because I always forget that Alakazam is a quick motherfucker. Especially in Generation 6 when it gets a Mega Evolution. The Generation 1 evolutions that need trading to evolve, so Alakazam, Machamp, Gengar and Golem, which I think are the only ones, correct me if I'm wrong. They tend to be pretty damn strong because their unevolved forms also need to be pretty strong, just in case you don't have any friends. If you have no one to trade with, you can't make them stronger, so they already need to be strong before they evolve, and then they're insanely strong when they do evolve. Well, maybe not insanely strong, that's a bit of an overreaction, but now that I think about it, they all kind of had their specialties. Machamp in attack, Golem in defense, and then Alakazam and Gengar both really had high speed and special stats, but Alakazam both has them slightly higher. But fuck it, for the sake of making this little connection, I'm gonna say that Gengar was supposed to excel in speed and Alakazam supposed to excel in the special stat. Because remember, in Generation 1, special attack and special defense was one thing. I thought I'd remind you. Speaking of which, Alakazam is using Calm Mind to increase both his special attack and special defense, which is actually a pretty good status move for a special tank. And hopefully I can make it faint before he puts those status buffs to good use. And by good use I mean murdering me. Now he's using Future Sight, which is a powerful psychic type move, but it takes a few turns to attack. However, you can still use other moves while you're waiting for Future Sight to hit. But thank God I was able to defeat him before that happened, and I made it look like I didn't have too much trouble with it. Well, kind of, but let me just remind you that this took me multiple tries, like a bunch of tries, like way too many times. That is not even supposed to be all that difficult, I just had trouble with it for whatever reason. I don't recall having that much trouble with it in the past. Anyway, we get a free Pokemon! We don't have any room in our party right now, so he just sends it to the PC. It's sort of a gift for saving everyone, even though we're not entirely done here yet. But who cares? Free stuff! It is a Lapras. It's a water ice type Pokemon, and that guy mentioned that he is a great swimmer. Hint hint, wink wink, we get an HM later on. We are gonna see Lapras later on, but I'm never really gonna use it, to be honest. And I forget to heal up before fighting this guy, so oops. Anyway, in the meantime, allow me to explain the weaknesses and resistances of ice type Pokemon, because I don't think I've done that yet. The only thing they're resistant against is other ice types, and they are weak to fighting, fire, rock and steel. Ice type attacks are effective against dragon, flying, grass and ground, not very effective against fire, ice, steel and water. Weird, I always felt like water should be weak to ice as opposed to resistant to it, but whatever, I don't make the Poké rules. Kinda weird, in Generation 1 fire type was not resistant to ice type attack, but in Generation 2 they are. There are a few other differences between Generation 1 and 2 weaknesses. Let's see if I can find the list. It's a small list. Ah, here you go. There's the fire was not resistant to ice, as I already explained. In Generation 1, poison was also weak to bug type attacks, and bugs were also weak to poison type attacks. That's kinda neat, I wish they kept that around. It's a good little two different types are weak to each other. And bugs being weak to poison would make sense, though bugs already have a number of weaknesses, but poison is barely good against anything. Poison is just good against grass until the fairy type in Generation 6 rolled around. But honestly, I think that both bug type attacks could have had a bit more use that way, and poison type attacks could have had a bit more use that way. But no, they had to change it, even though I really don't think it was necessary. And now bug takes normal damage from poison attacks, and poison types are resistant to bug type attacks. Oh, and there's one more, which I think I already explained, is in Generation 1, psychics were immune to ghost, and nowadays they're weak to ghost. But that's all of it, and in the meantime I beat it at one trainer, so now I went back to heal up, and now we are going to face off with Giovanni once more. On the subject of Giovanni, I actually recently really grown to like him a lot more because of Pokémon The Origin. I've talked about that before, I think. A little 4-part special that recreates the events of the first game in little anime form as opposed to the actual anime, which stinks ass, and Giovanni has a stupid orange suit in that. Pokémon The Origin, on the other hand, I think did a really good job with Giovanni. They really gave him a good intimidating personality while also giving him sort of a reason at the very end, which I'm not gonna spoil. I'll bring it up when we face Giovanni for the last time, but yeah, they did a really good job with him and the rival character, which is green, or in the American version blue, or in the my Let's Play version rival dipshit. Him and Giovanni, I think, just got a major upgrade in terms of storytelling in Pokémon The Origin, and I love it for it. And then of course there's Red, the player character. Him also because they actually give him a personality, because, well, in this he doesn't have one. That's what I really like about these sort of adaptations where you have a silent protagonist and then they give him an actual personality. They make sense. So Pokémon The Origin did that. I think the Persona 4 the animation and the Persona 3 movies also do a really good job with that. Especially in the case of the Persona 4 and 3 adaptations, where they do have personalities and character and they do speak, but they're also given a reason why they don't speak a whole lot. Because of their personalities, they stay kinda silent, but they can speak, and we know they have a personality. But to go back on topic a bit more, in Pokémon The Origin they also give Red a full personality, but he's not silent at all, he just speaks and he makes sense. And I hate silent protagonists. I get it, it's to add to the immersion, it does add to the immersion, but then you also lose a lot in storytelling. I think the biggest offender of this is Link from The Legend of Zelda, and I know I'm about to offend a lot of people, and honestly I don't really care a whole lot. Legend of Zelda is all about the immersion, and they do a great job with that, but they also try to have a story and it simply doesn't work because Link doesn't speak. Link doesn't have a personality for the sake of having that immersion. But because of that they lose a lot in this story department, which is sad because I think The Legend of Zelda has a lot more potential that they're not living up to in story. How does Link feel to suddenly become this hero of time who has to save Hyrule? How does he respond to suddenly having this responsibility? And how does he react to this fish woman who wants to marry him? We know nothing about what he feels because we're supposed to feel it as the player, but it doesn't work as a story. One thing that's important to remember is that story is not just the plot, it's not just what happens and how things are happening, which even that to an extent The Legend of Zelda could do a better job with, but it's also about character. Story is a combination of plot and character, and you're just not spending enough time with character. They do it occasionally, but it's just missing. And I know that I'm gonna get a lot of hate for all this, but I just think that The Legend of Zelda, when people talk about the story, they never mention anything about the story or the characters, they just mention the immersion, and story and immersion are two completely different things. And I'll say that immersion is great in The Legend of Zelda, but they're missing out on the story, and I think they could give Link and everyone a personality while keeping the immersion there within the gameplay. I don't know why I'm even talking about this. I'm doing a Pokemon Let's Play. I'll do a Legend of Zelda Let's Play eventually, but I just started talking about Pokemon The Origin, and story writing and silent protagonist. And anyway, this is Nidoqueen, evolution of Nidorina. I like it a lot better than Nidoking, so I don't know why I have a Nidorino in my party when I should have had a Nidorina, but hey, I'm brain dead. Just suddenly had the urge to get that Legend of Zelda rend off my chest. Back to Pokemon, allow me to collect my thoughts and collect my facts. I had a fact about Nidoqueen, I'm not sure if I mentioned it before, so just in case I'm gonna mention it again. Nidoqueen and its pre-evolution Nidorina can't breed for some reason. It's weird, and people question why those are the only two Pokemon that don't really have a reason for why they can't breed. But Nidoran female, so the first evolution, that one can breed. So you can breed that with a Nidoking. So Nidoking has forever earned the nickname Pedoking. Or Pedoking, whatever. The punchline is he's a pedophile because he breeds with a baby thing. Ah, never mind. We defeated Giovanni and saved the Silph building and their president or boss or whatever. So to thank us, he gives us the Master Ball. It is a one-use only Pokeball that you don't get anywhere else in the game, which can catch any Pokemon without fail. You don't have to damage the Pokemon or paralyze the Pokemon. You just throw it and you catch it. And of course, because you only get one, you really have to save it for the proper occasion. I mean, you can use it on a PG if you want to, just why would you want to? Also, I say it can catch a Pokemon without fail. It was fairly recently discovered that because of the way it was programmed, it actually can fail, but it has a really small chance of it actually failing. I looked up the actual numbers and it is 1 in 65,536 chance that the Master Ball will fail, which is like a 0.002% chance. And just to make a comparison, the chance of finding a shiny is 8 times higher than the Master Ball failing, so you really don't have to worry about that actually happening on you. Though I do feel bad for the kid that may have actually happened to, because none of the other kids are going to believe him. Ever. They're just gonna say, dude, you should have just pressed down AB. For those of you who don't know what it is. That's sort of this weird theory that, well, very long ago, that when you press down AB when throwing the Pokeball, you actually get a better chance of catching the Pokemon. It's bullshit, it's not true, but a lot of people like to believe it anyway. It's just one of those things that feels like it works when you're a kid. Actually, I never did down AB when I was a kid. I had my own little thing where I would throw the Pokeball and then mash B and A rhythmatically. Oh, the good old days, when I was even dumber. Anyway, a few parts ago we got the Poké Flute, which means we can now wake up those two Snorlax and we can run away or fight them or catch them or whatever. I'll see what I do with this one. For some reason nowadays I only associate that little flute song with a certain Pokemon creepypasta. I'm trying to remember which one it was. I think it was called Lost Silver. It plays a role in that, kind of, and whenever I hear that I just think of that instead of Happy Fonts, because in Lost Silver it's not really a happy font. Anyway, we're now fighting a Snorlax and by God, this guy's fat. I can barely see its face. And now it's using Yawn, which, unlike other sleep-inducing move, it has a perfect accuracy. It will never miss unless the Pokemon is sort of unavailable by using either Fly or Dig or something like that. However, as you just saw, it doesn't make you fall asleep right away. Instead, you only fall asleep after the next turn. So you still get 1 or 2 attacks in. So it's more reliable because of the accuracy, while at the same time it's less reliable because it takes a while to take effect. Honestly, I don't see it get used a whole lot. People seem to prefer trying their luck with the lower accuracy instant sleep-inducing moves. But this battle seems so far so easy, right? Well, here comes the bitch. Snorlax uses Rest, and it falls asleep, but it heals itself to full health. Rest can be a pain in the ass to deal with if it's used by a Pokemon that can take a lot of hits, because you now have to start killing it fast enough before it wakes up and then uses Rest again. And on top of that, something that people like to do, and that this Snorlax right here also just used, is give your Pokemon a Chesto Berry to hold, because it will instantly cure you from the sleep status, so that way you can pretty much get a free heal up without having to deal with the sleep status. You can only use it once though, so now the Snorlax is asleep and it's gonna stay asleep. But to go in combination with the move Rest, he also has Snore, which is a move that deals damage, but it only works when you're asleep. There's also another move that goes in combination with Rest, and that is Sleep Talk. Much like Snore, it only works when you're asleep, but instead of doing damage itself, it will pick a different move from one of your move slots and use that one. Though you don't get to decide which one, and if it uses Rest, the move will just fail. I'm not entirely sure if this Snorlax has Sleep Talk, but I know it does have Rest, Snore and Yawn. So this Pokemon is pretty much entirely based around sleeping, though you can give it a bunch of other moves. Also, you can't find Snorlax in the wild, so if you want one, you have to catch either this one or the other one we saw earlier. And if you don't catch those two, you can't get them at all, unless you trade with someone. Also, I could paralyze him, but he also has the move Rest, so if he uses it, he'll get put to sleep, which replaces either Rest, Poison or Burn, so it's also a status condition cure. Rest in itself has multiple uses, so it's a fairly good move overall. In fact, it's a pretty damn good move overall. Now to give it a nickname, what could I call? Yeah, it's called Fat. He's fat! Also, I like how it's about to say Fat got transferred. Snorlax got a liposuction. Also right here I show off where you can get one of the free fishing rods. I didn't show off the first one, but I'm gonna show off this one. Talk to this guy, tell him you love fishing, and he will give you the super rod. I didn't really show off the other ones because I didn't really need them, but in hindsight I really should have showed them off, or should have explored Kanto a bit in general. Maybe in an extra video. Oh, and he also says that he loves Magikarp, so if you catch a Magikarp and show it to him, he will actually give you a little reward, which is a Net Ball, one of the special Pokeballs that was introduced in later generations. The Net Ball in particular is designed to catch Bug and Water type Pokemon, so it makes it easier to catch a Pokemon if it's a Water or Bug type. And if you use it on a Pokemon that isn't one of those two types, it's gonna be just as powerful as a normal Pokeball. And just for comparison, a normal Pokeball has a value of 1, a Great Ball a value of 1.5, an Ultra Ball, which I'm not sure if we've seen before, a value of 2, and if you use a Net Ball on a Water or Bug type Pokemon, it has a value of 3. So I usually go with Ultra Balls because they're all use as opposed to having certain conditions to being better, but other Pokeballs are better than the Ultra Ball under those conditions. Once again, I'm probably just going to make an extra video or two with showing off things I didn't show off, which includes those Pokeballs, and maybe add when exactly those Pokeballs are better in an annotation, unless it's actually in the description of those Pokeballs when you buy them, in which case... Back to what's going on screen, we're waking up the other Snorlax, so... And this is the only other Snorlax in the game, so either you catch this one or the other one, or both for all I care. But if you catch neither, then tough luck, you're not getting another one. Unless you maybe trade with someone. Now, since the rest of this video is just fighting this Snorlax, which we already fought another Snorlax like a minute ago, I'm gonna take this time to correct a mistake I made earlier. In an earlier part I talked about immunities and status moves, like how a Ghost type, even though it's immune to normal type moves, it can still be affected by normal type status moves like Mean Look. But I also mentioned that Sand Attack, which is a ground type status move, will still not have any effect on a flying type Pokemon, and that was actually wrong. In Generation 1, Sand Attack was a normal type attack, and it could hit flying moves. When they made it a ground type move, they made sure that flying types could still be affected by it. So disregard what I said about flying types being immune to Sand Attack specifically, still immune to other ground type moves, but not Sand Attack, so yeah. Sorry for another one of the many mistakes I've made in this playthrough. Perhaps there's someone who already corrected me in the comments somewhere. With that said, 3, 2, 1, and he's down! Boxer beats sumo wrestler. Or just a fat guy laying on the road. Well, he's not dead according to the text, he just yawned and went to the mountains, but I was standing on the right side and the door on the left side is way too small, so maybe he just fucking jumped away or some shit. We're out of time, bye!